Go ahead.
I'm Diane Wittner, and I'm with ChesapeakeCitizens.org.
Now, Diane, why was it important for you to help coordinate this event tonight?
It was important for me to help coordinate this event because our war economy is continuing to grow, and that to me is absurd and insane. Every day I live with the consequences of what David Swanson, in his book War is a Lie, what he calls war as public policy. War is our primary public policy tool in this country. I know that every 2 weeks when I pay my paycheck, I see that a huge portion of money comes out of my paycheck, goes to the federal government, and I know that 50% of it goes to war. And the fact of the matter is, I can't afford that. We can't afford it. I work at the confluence of juvenile justice, restorative healing, and arts education. I work with troubled youth every day. And so every day, from the minute I wake up until the minute I come home, I live and live with the consequences of war as a primary public policy tool. And it's profoundly destructive. Baltimore, to me, is a war zone, and I'm living with and trying to work with some of the victims along with some of my amazing colleagues. The reason why it was important for me then to organize this event was because David's book, War is a Lie, is a very
I'm just going to stand over and get that title right now while you're talking there.
It's a very important tool for all of us to use to do something about this path we're on that is so profoundly destructive. And it is my hope that this is part of the echo chamber that we need to do something about war as our primary public policy tool, so we can engage and we can get the politicians to engage in what's known as conversion, so that we convert the war economy into an economy that promotes green job training, excellent quality public education for all of our young people, where schools are havens, refuges, sanctuaries for young people, so that we can convert our transportation, so that we have green transportation policy, and so that we move away from climate disaster and community tragedies that we're experiencing every day.
Okay, thanks so much, Diane.
Clear winner. I'm going to talk briefly about why I wrote War is a Lie and what it means and what it's about, and then have brief statements as well from Andy Worthington and Debra Sweet, and then we'll take your questions and try to give as many concise answers as we can until we have to call it quits and sign books and talk less formally. And Andy, if you don't know, is the author of Guantanamo Files and is the expert anywhere in the world on what we are doing to people in Guantanamo. And you can go to andyworthington.co.uk and be much better informed. He also has put out a film called Outside the Law, Stories from Guantanamo, which I'm sure has been shown in Baltimore, but should be shown endlessly everywhere. And Debra Sweet is one of the best not just speakers, but organizers and activists that we have in this humble little country of ours on issues of peace and justice, opposing wars, opposing torture, opposing war crimes and abuses. And so it's wonderful to have both of them. A friend of ours named Cindy Sheehan had said that she would be here with us this evening, and she is ill and not coming east at all this month. So we are very sorry not to have Cindy, but we are thrilled to have so many of you. I think one of the reasons that I wrote War is a Lie was because I kept running into very smart, informed people who would tell me how offended they were by the war on Iraq, because for the first time ever, a U.S. president had lied about a war. And I thought that, you know, we needed to sort of set the record straight a little bit. You know, if you look back at U.S. wars or wars started by any other country, the package of lies that was used to start this most recent catastrophe in Iraq was absolutely typical. I mean, the one unique feature perhaps was that the #1 lie used to launch the war was something very simple that could be very easily disproven. Not that it hadn't been disproven many times over before it was told, but afterwards they could say, well, where are the weapons? Other than that, it was absolutely typical. And you look back at the excuses, you know, the Gulf of Tonkin incident that never happened, the babies that were never ripped out of incubators and left on the cold floor of the hospital before the previous Gulf War, the Taliban willing to turn bin Laden over for trial before and after 9/11, but we weren't interested. We needed that excuse. The sinking of the Maine with absolutely no evidence that Spain did it, but that was good enough for a war. The lies by President Wilson and President Franklin Roosevelt about German sinkings of U.S. ships, the invasion of Mexico that was depicted as an invasion of the United States, you know, the march into Canada in 1812 that was going to be a cakewalk. We would be welcomed as liberators, and so you find very similar lies, and so rather than go war by war for the past several millennia, which would get very redundant, I went with themes, right? And so the table of contents for this thing reads like, wars are not fought against evil, wars are not launched in defense, wars are not waged out of generosity, and so forth, to go after some of the themes that are very likely to show up in the next big pitch for any war. And when I say wars are not launched against evil, what I mean is some of the excuses used to get emotions behind a war involve depicting some enemy, an individual or a population as evil beyond measure. A new Adolf Hitler running some impoverished nation that has oil, a religion or a race or a linguistic or cultural group depicted as evil. And I think it's great to have Andy and Debra here, who are working on Guantanamo and can tell you, if you don't know already, where you should be at the White House tomorrow on the anniversary of the opening of Guantanamo, because a lot of what has been accomplished with that has been convincing Americans that these people are incredibly, incredibly evil. Right? When you can't talk to people, you can't reason with them, you have to put hoods on their heads, you have to treat them as animals, you have to torture them. They are evil beyond measure, so that it would actually be a threat to our nation to put one of them on trial in our country, even though we've now done it without any disaster. It still would be this incredible danger. And so highlighting the domestic evils of rulers in places like Iran or North Korea or someplace that we may want military hostilities transitions very easily into these people can attack us. They're so evil that they can attack the strongest empire the world's ever seen. And so it's a defensive war. Going halfway around the world, attacking a poor nation is a defensive war. And every war is always a defensive war from all sides. And at the same time, you often have arguments about wars being humanitarian adventures. Wars are being launched to help people, and above all, continue to help people. We can't abandon the people of Iraq. We can't leave the people of Afghanistan when they need us most, even though they don't want us. Regardless, because we know better, for their own good, we must stay. And so you always have conflicting sales pitches for wars, and each appeals to a different section of the U.S. population. So some people want a war to be a humanitarian act, and other people want to wipe that nation off the face of the earth. And they all work simultaneously. And then you get new lies to keep a war going, and then you get new lies after the fact to tell you what a war was good for that had nothing to do with the war at the time. You know, so if you're not for war, you're for tyranny, you're for slavery, you're for Nazism, right? Because of what the Revolution and the Civil War and World War II are depicted as after the fact. And it's very important for keeping the war machine going to tell the right stories about past wars. Because once you get to the point of questioning all the wars, you start asking, well, why in the world don't we eliminate war? And understanding that we certainly can, and that most human societies have. And that human societies have limited it and done away with it and survived perfectly well, in fact better. And so we have to get to that full understanding. I mean, it's easy enough to get people to say, oh, we shouldn't have gone into Iraq, we shouldn't have gone into Afghanistan, as a majority now said, although arguably a majority said okay at the time. But to get people to say, there couldn't be a good war next month is a much bigger hurdle, and usually includes some of the people at my book events. So I'm not always just preaching to the fully converted choir. And we still have this tendency to think, well, we don't say good or bad rape or just or unjust slavery, but we say wars can be good or bad depending on the facts of the situation. The greatest evil humanity has ever come up with, we tell ourselves, can be good sometimes and not others. Getting beyond that would be very, very helpful if we are ever to dismantle the war machine, the thing into which we're dumping over half of every income tax dollar, the thing that is destroying our environment, our political system, our economy, our laws, in 8 different ways, including the blowback from it and the proliferation of nuclear weapons. We are not going to survive it, even if we think some ancient war was good. It provides no justification for keeping this machine going now, because we can't survive it. It's not about becoming more civilized. It's about surviving at all. And yet I think, and in light of the only story in the news the past 2 days, that if we could get to that point, it would change our thinking about violence across our culture. I mean, we would have very different tastes in entertainment. The lesson wouldn't always be violence wins. And it would change our, assuming some form of representative government, it would change our policies in terms of criminal punishment, the death penalty, the stripping away of civil liberties, which Americans tend to lose after they take them away from other groups, our access to guns. Andy and I did a television show earlier today, asked about this, and he was in the position to say, well, come to my country, nobody has guns, and we do okay. The restriction, we fetishize absolute free speech for corporate media outlets, and yet under international treaty, we have to do away and punish war propaganda and incitement of hostility and violence toward groups of people. We have to criminalize and punish these things. And it would mean investing some of our resources in something other than the military, right? In healthcare, in mental health care, in a different approach to drug abuse, not to mention creating jobs and houses and green energy and so forth. So if we don't stop the course we're on in terms of war making, we die. If we do, we live much better lives. So I think it's an excellent trade-off.